a new episode of this series of talks on software engineering, but from a much broader canvas. So I hope you remember we have been discussing software evolution and what kind of software development process is to be followed to help the software to evolve. The reason is a software has its lifetime much more than a hardware or the software tools. So how to go about it? We have discussed all these in details in the last couple of classes probably. So and we have also discussed what are the goals, and then what are the advantages of having a well-defined production process, um, essentially to help the software grow as per the requirement and at the same time remain viable for a much longer period of time. So we have also discussed code and fix model, which is hardly any model to mention. This is basically the model we follow when you, as a student, or whenever basically you are the developer, you are the owner, and you are the user of the code. So you code it, uh, but that's hardly any model. But that's how it was working. And we have also noted that code and fix model, like just write and fix the errors and all those, code and fix model works only when owner, developer, user, they all are the same person. But those days are gone. Now software is a hugely complicated and very big activity. Say railway reservation system, owner railways, developer CMC, user almost everybody. So how to go about it? So we have discussed the limitations of code and fix model, and then we have also mentioned what are the demands of today's environment. That's the software is definitely not for personal use only. So this all, and software development is a group activity as well. And we have to remember that the group activity, the members of the group may be of various diversity, located in various geographic locations. So there has to be some kind of communication. We have discussed that. So what are the steps to be taken? And then we have introduced waterfall model, a revolutionary concept in the evolutionary process of software development, where for the first time it was appreciated that the development of software is an engineering process. So like any other engineering activity, software development also has to be um, broken down into several phases like feasibility, requirements, analysis, functional specification, design, development, coding, and all those. Here, one thing you should remember very clearly that I have mentioned here just six such phases. Depending on the book, depending on the person, you may find four phases, you may find eight phases, but that's not the issue. The issue is the issue is waterfall model for the first time emphasized that software development being an engineering activity has to be broken down into several phases. Just like if you go to any electronic production unit, electronic products production unit, auto production unit, you will see there is a conveyor belt kind of thing. People are sitting, working on various phases. Um, so that's it. So the other thing is, I have not intentionally mentioned testing as a separate phase here, because today it is appreciated that every phase has to be tested. Even when you think or you work on feasibility study, that also has to be tested. Requirements analysis, that also has to be tested. So every phase has to be tested. So it's not proper to have testing as a separate phase, even though it is a very important component on each phase. And then interface testing is also very important. Like when you say requirements analysis, you have noted down the requirements very clearly. Then you go to functional specifications and then you go to design. So interface between one phase and another phase, that also has to be tested. So testing is essentially and all pervasive activity. And the other thing is, even though I've used the word maintenance, nowadays generally maintenance is not used. The word used today is called evolution. Like a software working for some time, and then we find that there is some bug. So we fix the bug. So software evolves to the next version. That's why the version numbers come. Version 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. Then 1.1, 1.2, like that. So it evolves because of fixing some bugs, which could be ascertained because of the usage of the previous version of the software, or could be addition of some more functionalities. So this we have discussed in details. The other thing is, you remember very clearly, you may be asked in many job interviews, why a software fails. What are the reasons for failure of software generally? Generally, failure of software is because of the requirements analysis, failure in requirements analysis. About 70 to 80% of the failure is due to inability to capture the requirements properly. Be very careful. But unfortunately, from student life, we just concentrate on coding, coding, and coding. Yes, coding is very important, but in no way we can ignore requirements. And documentation also. That is also very important. That a thumb rule is, out of 100 lines of code, around 75 lines should be on documentation. And there should be some implicit documentation also. Implicit means what? Say, I'll say, instead of naming variables as XYZ, you name variables by the physical parameters. Salary, basic pay, temperature, humidity, like that. But these we have discussed earlier. And this is why this is known as waterfall model, as if water is falling from higher level to lower level. So we have discussed this done in the last class. Advantages, we have already stated the advantages of waterfall model. But outputs of each stage has to be standardized, because from one stage to another stage we are going. Output of one stage is the input of another stage. As for example, I've given this example in many times. You can have bulbs. You can have conventional bulbs, LED, LCD, or so many kinds of bulbs. But the holder has to be standardized. Otherwise, it won't work. So, documentation. This is another thing we have mentioned very clearly already. You should understand. Ask yourself two questions. Are you developing the right product? Question 1. Question 2. Are you developing the product right? Don't confuse with this. Developing of right product means I have a problem. I have a problem and I need a product to solve that problem. So I live in Calcutta. I have a problem and I know that I need a car for travel. Fine, no problem. Now, if you buy a Mercedes or BMW for to solve your problem, will it solve? Of course not. Probably an Ambassador or a Maruti would be much better than some Mercedes here. So while thinking about a product specifications, requirements, and etc., you should be very clearly satisfied about whether you are working for right product. Next step, other question is, are you developing the product right? That means you already have identified the product, you have the specifications for that product, and you have to ensure that whatever you produce exactly matches with the specifications. That is developing the product right. Remember, role of a programmer is at that stage, developing the product right. He or she is supposed to code, develop the product in such a way that it strictly satisfies the specifications. But if even after satisfying the specifications, it does not solve the purpose for which it is intended, then it's not the problem of the developer because he has developed the product right. Then it's the problem of identifying the right product. There comes the role of systems manager, systems analyst, programmers, and all those. So that's where, and software engineer, most importantly. And that's where the software engineer is of such a high demand because they have to assist or help the top level managers in identifying the right product, developing the specifications, identifying the requirements, and at the same time, they have to assist the or guide the programmers also, so that the product is developed exactly as per the specifications. So a software engineer's role is very, very important, cutting across from feasibility study to right from the to development and finally deployment. That's why software engineers are of such a high demand and paid much more than the programmers. Then it should be subject to discipline. तो हमने discuss किया है. But what are the concerns of waterfall model? Major concern is it is linear and highly monolithic. That means you come to a particular phase of the software development process only after the previous phase is completed. There is no scope for going backwards. You have developed the requirement specifications, then you come to functional specifications, then you come to design phase. In design phase, if you see that there's a problem in functional specification, in waterfall model, there's no way you can go back. But in many cases, it is found that the lacuna of any particular phase is clearly understood when I come to the next phase. So this is chicken and egg kind of problem. So if we allow the developer go backwards to the previous phase, then it becomes more or less like code and fix model. So how to handle this is one issue. And another very important issue is here you have the product delivered at the end of all the phases. That means the user for which you are developing the product, they have no idea about what is being developed. They only get the final product. Even if the final product is good, it's very difficult for the user to wait blindly that, okay, I have given you some job, I will get the job done in 6 months, and within these 6 months, I do not have any idea about how the process development is going on. In today's world, it's a customer-driven business environment. So it's always preferable to have some deliverables during the development process. So development process should be in steps in terms of delivery. As an example, you are building a house. You are building a house. One approach is you give it to a developer, you have no idea what's going on. After 2 years, you get the house. But probably you would love to have the house developed in stages. First, 2 rooms are made, handed over to you. Then another room is made, handed over to you. Then some interior decoration is made, handed over to you. So these kind of phased delivery is not supported by waterfall model. And the third one is customer is not at all involved in the process of development. Now it is rational to be like that because customers are not technology persons. They may not be knowing what software engineering does. But same is true for you. You are a software engineer working on, say, transportation system. You also do not know transportation system. So probably as much as you know for transportation system as a software engineer, similarly some other person, maybe a mechanical engineer or a chartered accountant, today she is also reasonably familiar with software development process. And today's world is very much dependent on or welcomes involvement of the end users in the development process also. But you have noted now when you go to a doctor, seek his advice, you also share some of your views. Doctor, will that medicine work? Will that medicine work? Oh, URL में हमें ये देखा है. So that involvement of users at the development process is also a necessary requirement in today's world. And waterfall model does not satisfy that. So one approach is to allow feedback maximum one stage, not before that, not beyond that. One approach. But we have to be very careful. Once you do this, we should not compromise with the discipline. So these concerns we have discussed yesterday. Now we come to evolutionary model. This is the de facto standard software development process, life cycle they call it, SDLC, software development life cycle. You must understand this very clearly. I am sure you will be asked questions on this software SDLC, software development life cycle, in any forum you are in software engineering or software product development or whatever. So far we have developed the background and the platform for discussing evolutionary model. So, why it is evolutionary? Today, first we develop a product, version 1. Tomorrow, some changes are made, some bugs are fixed. It becomes version 2 or version 1.1, depending on the changes, whether the changes are large or small. So it becomes 1.1, 1.2, then becomes version 3, version 4, like that. And finally, we have to come to a conclusion that enough is enough. Now we have to go for a new product. So the previous product has to be scrapped. So the software evolves, version number changes upward with new specifications, a better product, like that, till it outlives its life. Evolutionary model. This is a model whose stages consist of expanding increments of an operational software product, with the direction of evolution being determined by operational experience. And the other thing is the need for flexible and non-monolithic approaches is recognized and implemented in the evolution model. Mind it, even an evolutionary model, necessity of different phases in the development process is very much accepted. In evolutionary model also, it is expected that it will be in phased manner. The way this waterfall model projects. But then there are some updations on that. So that is, so before we get into evolutionary model, I'd like to share with you, okay, before this, I do not have slide on that. There is another, you should understand, what is a prototype model. So what is a prototype? You have seen that if you go to buy a flat somewhere, you will see that the builder is proposing to build maybe 10, 12 buildings, very high rise and all those, but they maintain one small model to have some idea about what the final product is expected to look like. That is the prototype of what you are expecting to get. So that is a prototype of whatever you are expecting to get. Okay. Are you with me? Are you listening? Hello? Hello, Nilanjana?
Hello, yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
I am audible?
Yes, sir.
Because I'm not getting any feedback. So I'm audible, right? And the slides are also visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So a prototype is something like, as I said, that before it's not only in software, in many processes, you develop prototypes. What do you do? Like if you sit for an exam, in a question paper, it's very common that before answering the question in rough, maybe in the back page or some additional sheet, you make some rough attempts to see whether this is doable or not. So that is a prototype. You are not answering the right question, but trying to figure out something to help you understand whether you can develop the answer or not. So for that, first of all, you need to understand what is known as model and what is a formal model. So what is a model? We all know what is a model. Like a model is a representative version of some physical entity which is expected to be available in due course. As an example, as I have given, that the prototype flat many builders show in their project site. That is, and then what is a formal model? That you should understand very clearly, because almost the entire discipline of computer science and software engineering is depends heavily on formal models. So what is a formal model? Formal model is a model whose interpretation does not depend on the person who is interpreting it. So what is a formal model? A formal model is one whose interpretation does not depend on the person who is interpreting it. As an example, we have every natural language, English, Bengali, Hindi, Spanish, whatever, they have a grammar. But then why do we also need computer languages? C, C++, Java, Python, whatever. And they also have grammar. They also have grammar. Why? It's required because at the end of the day, the source code has to be compiled and translated to machine code. And computer can get it done only if there is no ambiguity in the source code. That's why the language of any computer language, every statement is absolutely formal. When you write a statement in a computer language, whether it's C, C++, Java or Python, interpretation would be same, irrespective of the person who is interpreting it. His age, knowledge level, demography doesn't have any meaning. On the other hand, once you write a sentence in English or in a natural language, the interpretation may vary depending on who is interpreting it, on what context it is being used. So we have, and this is the definition of a formal model. Okay, now get back to the prototype. Similarly, for software development, I have the say feasibility study done, requirements analysis done, function analysis also done. Now we are in the design phase. Just like answering the questions in your answer script, here also at the design stage, we may like to see some critical areas in the entire software development process, which probably I am not very sure of. Also, probably I have some various ideas in mind, just to check whether those ideas are translatable to the final shape or not. I would probably like to develop some prototypes. I'd like to develop some prototype. Now, these prototype can be of two types. Listen to me very carefully. One is throwaway prototype, and the other is evolutionary prototype. Again, I give you the same example earlier, as I have given earlier. As in the answer script, you may scribble about the answer as a prototype, and then one approach is you just strike off whatever you have written and develop the answer. So that is a throwaway prototype, where you have developed a prototype, analyzed its efficacy, and then have thrown it away and developing the actual product. Other stages, other approaches, you have developed a prototype, don't throw it away, keep on adding other features of the entire product so that finally it lands up into the level of the complete product. So that is an evolutionary prototype. So we can have throwaway prototypes, we can have evolutionary prototypes. Here again I have mentioned the need for flexible and non-monolithic approaches is recognized and implemented in evolution model. So this is evolutionary model. So what are the salient features? Deliver something to the real world. Don't let her wait for the entire project duration. Deliver something to the user in phases. Measure the added value to the user in all critical dimensions. And then in the, say, you give the user version 1. Then you give the user version 2 and also make him understand very clearly what are the add-ons. In version 2 vis-a-vis version 1. You see everywhere like that. When you buy a Maruti Alto and then you buy a Maruti Desire, you see the difference. Then you buy a Maruti Brezza or Ciaz, you get the difference. So keep on, when you build a house, version 1, you build only the bedroom, kitchen and toilet. Version 1. Version 2, you add one living room. Then you put some very fancy tiles, say in the living room. It's not that great. So you call it version 2.1. Then you build something on the floor. Big addition, call it version 3. So this is how they keep on delivering something to the user, of course, within the purview of the requirements. That is very important. You have identified the feasibility analysis, frozen the requirements, but convince the users, and user will also like this approach very much. Tell the user, sir, yes, we are committed to deliver the entire product. Plus, but probably you would be happier to see, say, some aspect of the thing is delivered to you in 3 months. Another 2 months, I give you this. So develop some milestones of delivery. Adjust both the design and the objectives based on observed realities. Yes, you get the feedback. That's why you can adjust the design. But again and again, remember, discipline must be retained throughout the evolution process. You just cannot and should not do whatever you feel like. Very often we find we are tempted to change the code at the drop of a hat. But without proper documentation, it is not at all permissible to change any part of the product. So the development begins by analysis and increment at requirements level. Each increment is then designed coded and tested, integrated and delivered. Prototype, I have already mentioned what a prototype is. The prototype serves the purpose of a starting point. And the overall process is thus a sequence of mini waterfall processes. This base of evolutionary model is the waterfall model. But it's much more pragmatic, much more closer to the reality, much more consistent with what is required, what is expected by today's society, what is expected by today's users. So as users actually use the delivered parts, they start to understand better what they actually need. Yes, this leads to changes in the requirements for further increments and revision of the original plan. This is very obvious. One thing is, okay, you have developed the documentation, paperwork and all those for the entire requirements. But once you come up with at least some version or some portion of the product, then the user see in his own eyes what's going on, and then she's in a position to any change in the requirement at the design phase. You got to be very careful. This we'll discuss sometimes later on from management perspective, because the user always wants everything, some of which may not be feasible. So any deviation requested by the user from the mutually agreed upon requirements specification has to be handled very, very carefully. So from the perspective of developer, since each increment is simpler than the whole system, it is easier to predict the resources needed to accomplish the development task within acceptable accuracy bounds. Okay. And this leads to what is known as spiral model, de facto standard of software development life cycle in today's world. I'm sure you'll be asked questions about spiral model whenever you face some interview board, whenever you appear for some exams and all those. So spiral model is a typical representative of evolutionary model. Why this is spiral model? It will be clear very soon. So the model provides a view of the production process that supports risk management. Till the advent of spiral model, the concept of risk management was not at all considered in software development process. So what is the risk in software development or software product development? There are many. I can name some of that. It is a highly technology driven activity. And technology changes very fast. Which technology you will use for developing the product may become obsolete tomorrow. That is a very, very big risk. I am developing, say, my product on the basis of Oracle. What happens if Oracle goes out of business tomorrow? Or Oracle comes up with a later version of the product and say that, no, we don't support the previous version. What will happen? One kind of risk. Another kind of risk is it's an absolutely global phenomenon. you are developing the product or support function for some services. The same thing may have been being developed by many persons all over the world. How do you know who are the others working on this? By the time you come up with your product, some of your competitor may come up with their product. Then it's a huge setback. It's a huge setback. Hey, Deepa, it's a huge setback from for your organization. Then comes probably the risk of highest dimension. Risk of highest dimension. What is that? Whatever we do, in whatever way we automate, whatever way we automate, at the end of the day, software development process cannot be de-linked from the abilities of individuals. From the abilities of the individuals. It has been empirically established that in the same class size of, say, 60 to 80 students, the ability to make good code varies by a factor of 10 from the best student to the from the top of the students to the bottom of the students, by a factor of 10. Ability to debug a code varies by a factor of 1:25 from the top of the students to the bottom of the students. But when a company comes for interview, for taking students, they cannot offer a salary of 10,000 to one student and 80,000 to another student, giving the same designation. Even though they know very well the productivity varies like that. So that's the reason software companies find it very difficult to retain the good or brilliant students. Brilliant need not necessarily mean academically brilliant. The person who is almost essential for a company may be a very mediocre student at his in his school days or college days. Now, this is a huge risk if some of the key individuals leave the organization. Leave the organization. Can you imagine if a player like Maradona, unfortunately is gone, leaves Argentina soccer team? What will happen to the team? It's an 11-member game, but so what? For those who are following English Premier League, you have seen what happened to Manchester United after their coach Ferguson, as it calls Sir Ferguson, has left. They tried with so many options, so many players, but there is no replacement. On the other hand, the person who is almost we cannot dispense with, cannot be dispensed with. If that person asks for an astronomical amount of salary, the company cannot offer that because that will lead to commotion within the organization. So risk management is a very, very important aspect in software development. Now, spiral model may be considered as a meta model. What is a meta model? It's a model of models, just like metadata. What is metadata? It's a data of data. since it can accommodate any process development model. It can accommodate waterfall, this prototype. Generally, it works with evolutionary model. So risks are potentially adverse. I have already mentioned is a discipline whose objectives are to. I have already mentioned risk management. It's very important. The spiral model is cyclic in nature. Each cycle of the spiral consists of 4 stages. And each stage is represented by one quadrant. Let's go to the picture straight away. Yeah. You start with the top rightmost quadrant. You start with the top leftmost quadrant. And here again, you will find differences from one literature to another literature. So the way I have presented it, we start from the top left quadrant. So what do we start with? Having given a problem, and then feasibility, then all those we have done. And then what do? We determine objectives, alternatives, and constraints. You understand meanings all those. We determine very clearly what are the objectives, what are the alternatives, and what are the constraints. Then we come to the top right quadrant where we evaluate all the alternatives, resolve risks, and identify that alternative which we feel suits us most. So evaluate alternatives, identify, and then resolve after resolving the risks. That is right top quadrant. Then comes to the bottom right quadrant. In the previous step, we have already evaluated and we have identified the steps. So now we develop the product, verify, and also think of next level of the product. We develop this product, verify, and then think about the next level of the product. And then we go to the last phase, last quadrant of the cycle that we plan for the next phase. So, because how can we plan for the next phase? Because before we plan for the next phase, we already have feedback based on the performance of the previous product, previous version of the product. We already have feedback analysis on the performance of the existing product. So we know what are the changes to be made. So we try to incorporate those changes, plan for that, and then go back again, determine objectives and all those. So version 1, then we go to version 2, and then we go to version 3. So in the process, actually, I'm very poor in drawing pictures in computer, in hand also. So this should be in the form of a spiral. It keeps on increasing again and again in diameter. It keeps on increasing as the software product evolves. Version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4, like that. And finally, it gets discarded. And at any point of time, the diameter of the spiral gives you some idea about the cost involved. Naturally, cost will keep on increasing. Cost will keep on increasing. So let's get back to what I had written earlier. Sorry. Yes. So the spiral model is cyclic in nature. Each cycle has 4 stages. I've already mentioned that. Radius of the spiral represents the cost. I've already mentioned that. Then 4 stages we have already discussed. This is the picture. So the spiral model emphasizes the issue of robustness together with correctness. And please remember whatever we have said already, the spiral model is essentially a meta model. Spiral model can very well use waterfall model. Of course, it can very well use this prototype model also, but this is a much broader umbrella for developing of software product. And this is SDLC, Software Development Life Cycle. That's why is considered as a cycle. After one cycle of the spiral, unstated requirements are checked as part of the robustness of the application, and they become part of the specification next cycle. We have already mentioned that also. So it is impossible to reconcile all the conflicting requirements of the software development process in a new universal blanket process model. So the first step of the software development process should always consist of selecting the design model. We have already discussed this. I think we should stop here. This is I am saying again and again and many times, because this is a very, very important topic in software engineering. Quite often misunderstood, not properly understood, and because it's difficult to understand the efficacy of this treatment from the student level, because at the student level we are still stuck to that code and fix idea, and we are not yet familiar with the situation where software development stakeholders are in conflicting position, like owner, developer, user. User wants everything available in the universe. Owner also wants, but owner doesn't want to shell out much amount of money. Developers are sandwiched. Marketing person, again, they try to get whatever is possible without even thinking whether it is possible to develop it or not. So it's a very, very critical process. So let us stop here. So any question? Any question?